Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With frustration still at all-time highs with the current state of Modern Warfare 2, is it possible we get the season pushed back for certain reasons? If the delays get so serious at the first week of the CDL, could we have a super weak situation occur that it did back at the start of 2021? And what does that mean for Major 1 in Raleigh? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that. We'll also thank you for 87,000 subs. Love to see it. Let's keep on going, boys, towards the end of the year. Firstly, to mention this because I believe the next set of jerseys are coming out on Monday. We have 3 more jerseys to go. New York, Vegas, oh my god, can't wait for that one. And the OpTic Texas guys, of course. And this is what Roosevelt comes up for CDL Intel. I mean, this is straight fire. I would definitely be wearing this at an event if this actually was a real thing. Hopefully, the 3 remaining teams can do a good job of their jerseys, as some teams have done so far. Bit of frustration here between some players. Chino not a big fan of the Fortress control map. LSClo control is Slash's seemingly most hated map at the moment. Parasite doesn't like control in its entirety, and that's the thing we've seen from other players in the past, and even TJ certainly has said this a lot of times, that he would prefer capture the flag back, as would Doug. But yeah, not even in the game yet, as we understand. Like, Uplink is arriving at some point, or is here already. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, hopefully Uplink is actually decent, but it's probably not going to be viable here, let's be honest. Like, you know, I'm not going to trust Infinity Ward to do a good job of that one. Quick bit of, you know, fun banter really between Rambo, Ray here, and Shotzzy, who obviously have been scrimming again over the last few days. But yeah, it's interesting for OpTic right now because the coaches had OpTic 7th in their power rankings. CDL Scrum Intel was also doing his power rankings, and, you know, my understanding is he's talked to some other coaches as well to kind of form a different opinion than what the coaches said in their power rankings that they did overall on the Breaking Point site that aBeZy put together. But he also has OpTic 7th, so quite an interesting situation right now to see how good OpTic actually are going to be this season. But usually at the start of the season, OpTic are almost always a pretty dominant force. They usually start out very strong, fall off a bit in the middle of the season, have a bit of an uptick at the end, but it's never usually enough. That's been the pattern for the last several seasons, but always they start out strong. And this season might be an exception to the rule, and if that is the case, then I don't know what that means for what they could potentially do as the season progresses, because, you know, usually they don't make any changes, but it's certainly possible. Dashy doesn't like the Warzone side either. But of course, it was that Warzone update that pretty much, you know, chalked the game, right? And as Scrappy said a few days ago, might have to play with normal rules for the league matches. So, you know, to a certain degree, this has now been fixed, but still, it's still not great. The custom games still don't really work properly. There's a load of scanner repair errors. Like, it's an absolute mess there. The lobbies, like, crash and break all the time still. The dev errors still arrive. And I don't know if that's going to get fixed in the next few days. And even if they do try and fix it, there's a good chance that it, you know, the fix doesn't actually work as they intend it to, as we have seen in the past and almost certainly will see again in the future. But at the other side is the CDL rules themselves still aren't perfect, right? In control, it doesn't work properly. We're getting 20 seconds extra per tick you get. So, you know, there's a few things right now that a game isn't where it needs to be. And I don't know what this means by the time the league actually begins, because this is the thing. With the league starting much earlier, you get the league starting earlier, which is a great thing, right? The league should be starting at this time of the year, every year. If the game comes out as it does, there should be as little gap as possible, a few weeks to practice, and then straight into the play. That's the only way you're actually going to capitalize on the potential of the scene, is to try and start the season as early as you reasonably can. And they've done it right this year, I think, in terms of the timing. The downside is the game is almost always in a broken state at the start of the season, and usually the first event is kind of random to an extent, with many different teams having a good chance, because but it's always been the case. You look at Vegas in Black Ops 4, or certainly Vegas in Infinite Warfare, right, when I think Rise Nation won, when the OSA was a weapon that was allowed, and it was absolute chaos at the start of that game. And while that might not be great for the pros, it does make it very entertaining for the fans, because it's kind of wide open for the first event of the season, and that's usually how it is. Now, there is some qualifiers coming up before Major 1, of course, which are going to matter for pro points and end of season champs qualification and stuff, but it's just good that it's starting early. The issue is that Modern Warfare 2 has probably had, like, arguably the worst launch, or one of the worst launches we've seen in a long time, especially for the stability of competitive play. And this is where the question about cancellation or delays starts to come into effect. Raleigh is December 15th through to the 18th. Now, they can't delay this. There's just no way. This is where the event is. They can't just cancel it or delay it, or, you know, they've got the venue booked. They've got all the other stuff going on there as well. Like, there's just no way you can do it. The issue is, though, about these online matches, because we have seen plenty of issues over the last few days about game crashes and, you know, dev errors and scanner repairs and all this stuff happening, and the pros are still not having, I imagine, the easiest time practicing behind the scenes. And if there's no fix in the next few days for these issues, like, I can't imagine what the schedule theoretically is meant to be for the matches next next weekends and what they're actually going to be for the matches next weekends. Hex even reckons here, now this was before the fix came through that actually did allow the pros to practice again, but he was effectively suggesting that cancellation could be on the cards, and Scrappy obviously isn't a happy man either.
I am constantly, dealing with the that I got to deal with on a daily basis, but when you add that sort of level to the stress of the players, as the players are trying to train and get ready for something, they can't even train. Nobody can train on a league that's $300 million.
When's the first event?
December 6th.
Yeah, I thought it was.
That's 3 weeks.
Oh, man.
What the?
And guess what's going to happen? I'm predicting it right now. Okay, people can't. No, I'm not calling for anything. But it's going to get canceled. It's because what's going to happen? What's going to happen? People are going to show up. The esports engine is going to turn on the lights. They're going to press play. OpTic obviously is playing at the last match of the day because it's esports engine / MLG / Adam Epicella. Shout out Adam Epicella.
Or they pull a Halo and half the people are playing on PlayStations and just.
Well, they can't play Halo on PlayStation, can they?
I guess if there's no practice, then
there's literally no practice, dude.
Does crash when they're scrimming?
Nah.
You
Is there
can't
any
even
problems
scrim.
with that? So that.
Not as much. You just can't scrim anyway. There's no point.
We just gotta figure it out, bro. We gotta figure it out. It has so much potential. If just got if that needed to be fixed got fixed, the game would be so good. But we're just fixing random at this point. Like, bro, we asked for quieter footsteps, we get louder footsteps. It's like, bro, I swear to God, we're getting trolled. I'm actually getting trolled. But that's all I'm saying, bro. That's all I'm saying.
So these are the matches and what the schedule should be for the first weekend of play. There are 3 days of matches, 4 matches per day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They do this for 2 weekends, on the weekend of the 2nd, on the Friday, and then they do it the next weekend on the 9th, and then a weekend later, they're in Raleigh for the major. So just 2 weeks of qualifiers, 4 matches per team to qualify, makes perfect sense. Now, the issue is, of course, already in Europe and other regions, it's a pretty late day when there's 4 matches on per day. But also, what are the delays going to look like? That's the concern to me, because we've seen plenty of times in the season last year that the delays are pretty extreme, especially with the state of the game. Like, I can imagine there's going to be game crashes, like, you know, they're working, as Daniel cited, on this game restore tool or something, which I don't imagine is going to be ready yet, but they're probably going to need that this week. It's probably not ready for them to even use. But still, I wouldn't be surprised if these timings, they say theoretically, are, you know, way out of line, because we get game crashes, we get delays, we get lobby crashes, they try and load into the lobby, it doesn't work, it gets delays. Like, it could be an absolute shambles of an opening weekend. I don't think we'd be that surprised to see it, to be perfectly honest, because of the way the game is right now. So maybe they fix it, they get a more stability over the coming days, but it's not looking particularly promising. And if that is the case, then what do they do, right? Because let's say these matches are basically unplayable. There's a problem with the game, they can't get in, the servers are broken, they're doing a Warzone update and therefore the servers are down anyway because they didn't know it was the opening weekends. I mean, like, this stuff is not off the table. We've seen it in the past, and it might well happen this weekend. I'm sure it's not going to be free from drama, let's say. Could we get a similar situation to what we saw at the start of the Cold War season when the Super Week came into effect? You guys might remember at that time there was a massive storm in the US, and Texas's grid is clearly not ready for anything along those lines, and every 10 years or so the grid just goes completely down. We saw from Clayster, like, everyone in the US or everyone in Texas was having a really tough time with this, and even as Simp says, just want to scrim. Like, I mean, look at it, it's just pretty outrageous. So this went on for a few days, the power went down, the pros weren't even able to practice or even play their matches online, and therefore they delayed them and came up with the concept of the Super Week, right? They delayed week 2 or whatever and combined week 2 and 3 into the Super Week. They then played matches every single day of the week, which was a reasonable idea. It worked or whatever, but yeah, still, could they possibly replicate this idea here if they need to? Let's say this first weekend, December the 2nd, like, it's still an absolute mess, because we thought, the pros said to us, that the fix was going to come through for all this stuff shortly after the season launched. They tried to do it earlier, but it didn't work, so maybe still shortly after the season launch on the Saturday, December the 3rd, they're going to drop the fix, and then it's going to sort things out. But by then, we've already potentially lost 1 or 2 days of matches. I don't know. So, but the thing is, at that point is, like, it's very condensed to schedule anyway. The major's on the 15th. Like, would you have to just cancel the qualifiers at that point and just go off, like, a very smaller set of qualifiers? Would they be able to make the second week into a Super Week and just fit all the matches in there? Like, potentially, but even then, there's no guarantee guarantee it's fixed. So yeah, I don't know what you guys' thoughts on this are, because certainly Hex doesn't think that it's out of the realms of possibility that something goes wrong. They can't really cancel the event. It's just not something that's going to be able to happen, but they can cancel and reschedule the qualifiers, which might be the important factor here. But this scanner repair issue we saw start to kind of come up really in Cold War a few years ago, and that was the thing. The idea of moving onto the PC was that, okay, much more stable, you get the updates better, all these positives of being on PC, and it's an absolute disaster class, to be honest. And even Asim says here, yeah, he's playing the Warzone thing with the nukes or whatever that he's trying to get, because there's some like nuke thing you can do, and scanner repair, game stops working, unlucky mate, and I'm sure we're going to get this in regular play, because it seems to happen all the time. The dev errors in custom games as well, not ideal, and I just don't know what the good solution to this is. So yeah, the thing is, like, this is the thing with starting the season early. It's a good idea, we should definitely do it, and the correct solution to this problem is not to, oh yeah, push the season back. The correct solution is fix the bloody game, you know, like actually get the devs on board with this and make sure that we don't have this issue in the future, and have some sort of unit within the developers that is focused on competitive play and competitive stability, which is, that's the actual solution here, not pushing back the league. But it might be a necessity to either cancel qualifiers or whatever, depending on what happens, or it's going to take like 3 hours per qualification match in a couple of weeks' time. Or it's going to take like 3 hours per qualification match in a week's time, which is not going to be fun for anyone, but it also doesn't look good for the CDL, because people will tune into the opening weekends because, well, they need to get the job done right, and it probably is not going to be smooth sailing, I would well imagine. But look, congratulations, as Hitch says, to Call of Duty and Activision for making over $1 billion already. So great success, really proud of everyone involved in what's been a phenomenal time for the scene. Quick question for you guys to close out the video. COD Ghost had some great maps here that need to be remastered in the future. Which map is better, Octane or Freight? Now, I think traditionally Freight is probably the better map. Like, and I wasn't actually the biggest fan of Freight, to be honest, compared to Warhawk. And I mean, Warhawk was just stunning. Honestly, that map needs to come back 100%. But yeah, it would be interesting to see one of these maps return. Freight, I think, is probably more viable for more different game modes. Octane was phenomenal. I thought they for Search and Destroy with the smoke grenades and the things you could do on the map was. I mean, that game was so good for Search. So yeah, need to take some inspiration here. Just frustrating that we're still playing the maps that we are, where there are plenty of good maps still there, ready to go, all remastered, we think already, potentially, ready to get dropped into the game, but yet they're going to wait an entire year to drop them for the second year of the scene. And just to finish up with this Brian stat, which pros have won the most season opening lands? Scump holds the record here by a significant margin, winning in Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 4, MW19, and Vanguard, the first event of the season. Aches, Big T, TP, Merc, and even Dashy with 2 as well. And a lot of these guys, of course, aren't even competing anymore, right? So yeah, can Scump get to 6? But I mean, yeah, still that record is going to take some beating from the next generation. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.